All right, hello once again, and welcome to my channel. This channel's for educational purposes, and we fill you in on uh, great things that you probably don't know about because they've been suppressed. These are things that the powers that be are trying to make sure that you never come across. And this is another in our Bible Decode series, number 423. And a lot of those videos are dedicated to the Roman origins hypothesis for the New Testament. And that is that the New Testament of the Bible was a psychological operation by the Romans. The Caesars of the Flavian dynasty are the true authors of the New Testament. It never happened. It is fiction. And it was a weapon that the Romans used and still use. And it was originally intended to end the religion of the Jews, um, or at least to uh, redirect the religion of the Jews into Roman um, control and Roman, uh, I guess control is about the right word. Um, now, the reason why they did this is because the Romans had enough of the Jews. They had been in control there in Judea for over a century, and the Jews did nothing but revolt and uh, insurrect and rise up and commit terrorist attacks and altogether just be difficult to govern. And so this culminated in a war between the Romans and the Jews that lasted for 7 years when the Jews revolted in Jerusalem, and it took the Romans 7 years to put down the revolt. And so the Romans had had enough, and Emperor Vespasian and his two sons, especially his son Titus, uh, they put into place a psychological operation, which is something that the Romans did a lot of. The Romans were masters of psychological warfare, and they were also adept at creating religions, having created a number of other religions at this very time. And in creating this religion, Christianity, they used everything that they had at their disposal. When creating a religion, you have to make it look like a religion. You have to put a lot of stuff in there that is inspiring and um, moral and gets you to live the good life, to live the upright, honest, pious life of a religious person. And you had to have, you know, a big, supernatural God component to your writings. So, it was a psychological operation, but it looks like a religion. And in order to do so, the Romans, with their stable of intellectuals at the court, put together the Gospels based on a lot of older traditions and religions and mythologies that they collected from all over the world. The ancient Egyptians, the Persians, the pagans, the Chinese, the Indians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Jews, they're all included. And we're looking at the work of an author named Kersey who writes a book here back in 1876 that is called 16 Crucified Saviors Before Christianity, where he documents some of these earlier sources that the Romans used to compile the New Testament. Where did these stories come from? Most Christians assume that Christianity is unique and that it is original and that it really happened. But when you look at it in the context of greater mythology and religion, you realize that every story in the New Testament, in the story of Jesus, is borrowed or stolen from other sources, older sources that you may not know about. And theologians have the gall to look at some of these older sources and call them mythologies. But then when the Christian version borrows these mythologies and utilizes the same stories, then they pronounce them as true and having happened really in history. So this is the extent of your delusion, if you still believe in this. And here is some more of the evidence. We are in chapter 34 of this book, and this is about prophecy and miracles. And we're about to start section 2, which is called Prophecy, the second pillar of the Christian faith, proves as much for heathenism and spiritualism. Truthful prophecy, attested to be such by its fulfillment, is assumed to be one of the basic pillars and one of the main proofs of the truth of the Christian religion. But the following consideration will show that this assumption has no logical force or real tangible foundation. First, every ancient system of religion had its prophets and seers who professed to be able to foresee events of the future, and we find but little difference in the proofs each one has left to the world that they possessed this power, if we accept the Greeks and Romans, some of whom evidently excelled all the Jewish prophets in their ability to take cognizance of the events lying behind the curtain of time. Tacitus, the Latin historian, prophesied the downfall of the Roman Empire and its attendant calamities more than 500 years before its occurrence, which was fulfilled to the letter. And Solon, one of the 7 wise men of Greece, foresaw and foretold a series of calamities which befell the Athenians 200 years before they were realized. A still more remarkable example is furnished in the history of Marcus Tullius Cicero, who, writing of the future, with his mind fixed on the West, about 50 BC, exclaimed, "There will arise after many ages a hero who will deliver his oppressed countrymen from bondage." A prophecy most signally fulfilled in the life of General Washington. Um, okay. Uh, Many other examples of heathen prophecy and their fulfillment might be cited if we had space for them. Hopefully, you don't have space for much if those are the prophecies that you're going to be providing. Uh, if that is a hero, there will arise after many ages a hero who delivers his oppressed countrymen from bondage. Um, that could fit thousands of people, probably, but apparently it fits General Washington. So, second, the history of modern spiritualism furnishes many cases of future events being predicted long before they took place. In fact, many of the most important events of modern times, which have occurred in this and other countries, were foreseen and foretold by spiritual seers known as seeing mediums, when there was not the slightest probability that such events would ever occur. We will cite one or two cases by way of proof and illustration. A few years ago, John P. Coles of New York, known as a spiritual medium, prophesied when under spirit control that Nicholas of Russia would shortly have a serious difficulty with his secretary Menziov. And just 3 months from that time would die. A prediction that was fulfilled to the very letter and to the very hour. And yet there was not the slightest probability extremely externally indicated at the time the prophecy was uttered that either of these events would ever be realized. And this prophecy, let it be noted, was published in the New York Times at least 2 months before it was verified, thus proving that the prediction was not an afterclap affair, but preceded the event. Take another example, the serious calamity which befell the ill-fated steamer known as the Arctic, which was lost at sea a few years ago with all on board, was prophetically described in minute detail by a spirit medium several months before it occurred, and was seen and described by another medium while taking place more than 1,000 miles distant. The proof is at our command, and the late disastrous war was foreseen and described by Cora Toppin of New York and other mediums in its principal events pointed out long before the war broke out. Now, this is the Civil War, I'm guessing, a fact which is now a matter of history. These are only a few cases out of hundreds that might be cited of a similar character drawn from the practical history of modern spiritualism. If, then, prophecy can do anything toward the truth or divine emanation of the Christian religion, it must do the same for the heathen and spiritual systems. And thus proving too much, it proves nothing at all. Third, the Jewish prophecies not fulfilled. We have examined critically the various texts of the Christian Bible called prophecies, and find that, if claimed as predictions of future events beyond the powers of the natural mind to foresee, they have all failed. But few of them have been fulfilled in any sense, and those few required no divine prescience to foresee the results. Many events have transpired in every country, which the natural sagacity of the most observant minds in that country had anticipated as the result of natural causes, such as the ravages and downfall of cities and the overthrow of empires by the merciless hand of war. The Jewish prophet, fostering a spirit of envy and enmity towards Egypt, Babylon, and other superior kingdoms, because they had been overpowered by them and long held in subjection to their superior sway, were always prophesying evil things of these principalities. And though some of the evils which constituted the burden of prophecy might have been reasonably anticipated as natural occurrences, it is a signal fact. They never transpired at all, such as the total destruction of Babylon, Tyre, Damascus, and other cities belonging to those hostile kingdoms the Jews so much envied and execrated. Look for proof at the case of Damascus. The prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel all pointed out their fulminatory thunders upon the city. Poured out their fulminatory thunders upon the city. Isaiah declared it should be a ruinous heap in Isaiah 17:1. And Jeremiah predicted its destruction by fire in Jeremiah 49:27. And yet, notwithstanding these predictions of ruin, Damascus still stands as one of the paradises of the earth. As one writer styles it, with a population, according to Burckhardt, of not less than 250,000, being one of the most magnificent and prosperous commercial cities on the globe. Now, 150 years later, Damascus may not be, some of these Jewish prophecies may have actually occurred between the writing of this book and present tense. But, this kind of harkens back to what I was talking about yesterday, how, all of these prophecies in the Old Testament, when they haven't come true, that just gets the zealots and the fanatics on the religious side to say, oh, they have not come true yet. They're still going to come true. So history goes out ad infinitum. And so we just have to pretty much assume that they are going to come true. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe in 40,000 years they'll come true. I guess that all things must pass, and eventually the sun is going to burn out, and this planet will become a frozen ball, or maybe a frozen plain, and I guess all the prophecies will eventually come true. So instead of being blotted out of existence as the Jewish prophets prayed and predicted, it has suffered less by the ravages of war and the scythe of time than almost any other city of the East. It has stood nearly 3,000 years without becoming a ruinous heap or being consumed by fire or destroyed by war. And the prophecy against Tyre most signally failed also. Ezekiel declared it should be destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar and never found again. But 250 years after Nebuchadnezzar's time, Alexander founded a strong commercial city, and it still contains a population of 5,000 or more. St. Jerome of the 4th century, early 5th, I'd say, but declared it to be the finest city of Phoenicia, and was astonished that Ezekiel's prophecy had so utterly failed. And Isaiah's famous prediction against Babylon furnishes another proof of the utter failure of Jewish prophecy. He declared, after predicting its destruction, "It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there." That's in Isaiah 13:20. Of course, he desired it should be so, but unfortunately for his credit as a prophet, it never suffered such a calamity. On the contrary, according to Layard and Rawlinson, British commissioners who recently visited the place, it now presents all the activity of a hive of bees and contains several thousand inhabitants, though its name is since uh, rebuilt, called Hillah, and thus the prophecy is falsified. "No," exclaims a good Christian brother in forlorn hope, "it may be fulfilled yet." But if he will examine the language of the prophecy, he will find he is entirely cut off from this saving clause. The prophet says, "Her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged," in Isaiah 13:22. Thus, it is evident that the prophecy was to be fulfilled in that age and generation. The failure, then, is absolute and indisputable. And these are but mere samples of the complete failure of every text called a prophecy when applied to the prognostication of future events. Numerous texts can be found in the prophets auguring evil for Egypt, which have made no approximation toward fulfillment. Ezekiel prophesied the fall of Egypt, the desolation of Egypt, the destruction of Egypt, etc., not one of which calamities has ever been realized in her experience. Prophecies respecting the restoration of the lost tribes and the perpetuity of the Israelitish throne are complete failures. Also, all the messianic prophecies, so called. With respect to the prophecy on Babylon, it may be further observed that while the prophet declares, "Neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there," Layard declares that that is the very thing they did do while he was there. He says he saw a number of Arabian tents pitched on the ground, thus proving a failure of the prophecy all round in every particular. Fourth, the Bible itself is a witness that truthful prophecy can do nothing toward authenticating a religion or toward proving the prophet divinely inspired. The same damaging concession is made here as in the case of miracles, that a heathen and an unbeliever could and did succeed as well as the true disciples of the faith. The proof of this statement is found in the history of Balaam, his figurative representation of a star coming out of Jacob and a scepter out of Judah in Numbers chapter 24 is often quoted by Christian writers as presaging or prefiguring the coming of Christ, thus making a heathen and an unbeliever the oracle of a messianic prophecy and a heathen too, of sinful and ungodly habits, so that the Christian subterfuge is not available here, that God might make a righteous man of any nation the vehicle of prophecy. For we have the express declaration of the Bible itself that he was not a righteous man, but very reverse. the very reverse. Peter tells us he loved the wages of unrighteousness at the very time this prophecy, so called, was uttered. Peter says this 2 Peter 2:13, which prostrates forever the Christian plea that he might have possessed the true spirit of prophecy by virtue of being a righteous man, and drives us to the admission that an unconverted savage and ungodly heathen unbeliever could make a true prophecy. It not being necessary then to be a Jew or a Christian or a believer or even a moral man to foresee or foretell the far off important events of the future. The argument falls forever to the ground that the fulfillment of the Jewish prophecies, if admitted to have been fulfilled, could do anything toward proving the truth or divine acceptance of the religion of the Bible, or its superiority over any heathen or Oriental religion then or subsequently known to history, as they all present the same evidence of being endowed with the true spirit of prophecy. All argument for Christianity based on the prophecies or the gift of prophecy is then forever at an end, as it has been shown that the power to foretell future events is not restricted by the Bible itself to any nation or to any religion, to any faith, to any belief, or to any moral or religious qualification. What then is prophecy worth, or what does it prove? Another case, and one similar to that of Balaam, is in its essential points, is found in the New Testament. Caiaphas, though not claiming to be any part of a believer, I guess he was the high priest, I thought, but I guess that's Jewish believer. So, utters a prophecy in the interest of the Christian religion, for which the Bible itself gives him full credit as a prophet. Here, then, is another case of a heathen stealing the Christian's thunder, and another proof that the spirit of true prophecy has never been confined to any nation or any religion, and hence, according to the teachings of the Bible itself, does nothing at all toward establishing the exalted claims of Christianity or toward proving its superiority over other systems of religion. Okay, that ends that section. Now, the next section is called Moral Precepts, the third pillar of the Christian faith. And I kind of would like to get started with this, but at the same time, I do have a few other things that I need to do right now. And so we're going to stop here, and we'll start up with this moral precepts section tomorrow when we return. Thanks for tuning in today. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute. And otherwise, come back tomorrow for another Bible Decode episode. Thanks for tuning in today, and have a great day.